watches. And like obviously it's a very interesting and cool brand, but the big thing when Russia invaded Ukraine, so that kind of adds another interesting thing to discuss. And thank you, Christian. Thank you for joining me. So we are trying this YouTube live for the first time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad you asked me to do this. It's my first time actually too to do this kind of thing.
So we already discovered some technical issues.
Like a Vostok. It does have a lot of technical issues. Yeah,
it's very on brand.
right. Thematically, we're right on the right on point.
Yeah. So I know we can start with something like what you are wearing. I had a glimpse of your watch.
It would be a remiss to not do this on a Seiko Saturday, so I put in my
Oh, nice.
009J. It's yeah, I think it's an early version of the 7S26, so it's probably like the 90s.
Oh, that's like with A
the A
movement
movement,
that
yes.
Kevin Klein likes. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I'm wearing British military issued RAF Gen 1. And yeah, and because of our discussion, I put it on Ukrainian NATO strap. NATO.
Yes. I wish I jumped onto that. At first, I was like, "Oh, they're probably gonna have it more," and it was a limited, so I missed out on that one.
They all sold out. There were several kind of strap brands that made these, and they got sold out immediately. I found one that was kind of lesser popular, some like Millstrap Canada. I wasn't even sure if this is like I didn't even know if that's like legit or not because I never heard about Millstrap Canada. People on forums said that that's okay, so I kind of put my order. I received it, and
yeah, I was gonna buy one just to put it on my Vostok, just to make a statement that you can't wear a Vostok without the help of Ukrainians. Ukraine strap.
Yeah.
But it might not fly. So anyway.
No. I mean, I think it would look good, and yeah, it's also kind of because like Vostok, it has interesting like Soviet history, right? But at that time, Soviet Union did include Ukraine, like it was
right.
It was like forceful inclusion. It's not because Ukrainians wanted to be part of Soviet Union, but the Ukrainians paid. The Ukrainians put a lot of effort in making like good things that were in Soviet Union, and they also fought the World War II, which has a lot of parallels with today's war. That Russia
That's
invaded
true. That's
Ukraine.
true. Right.
A lot of Ukrainians died. A lot of Ukrainians, So Vostok, it was this Chistopol factory. Do I remember?
That's correct. Yeah.
Like a lot of Ukrainians put a lot of effort in making these like Soviet watches, and
there was a cool anecdote. I have a friend who's a crazy collector as well, and he's researched some stuff. He did once say, like, up until the early 90s or almost 2000s, the Vostoks that were sold still had movements that were created from way back when.
The old ones,
Apparently, they actually locked a whole warehouse full of just Vostok movements. So they discovered it, but they had to sell them again. So there were ones that you have the kind of the Cyrillic thing underneath, and then the ones without anything, and then the next one is something, I don't know. So you have labels like, I guess this one doesn't have it because it was not in the 90s, so it did not have the writing here like Russian made or something like that.
So they had so usually the vintage ones say сделано in SSSR, or the export ones said made in USSR. some had this zakaz or which is Ministry of Defense, which it kind of wasn't officially, it wasn't issued watch kind of like this one. So this one is like you have to be British RAF pilot to issue this watch. Those and again, like you might know more about what's how
I,
about I'm gonna let you
I know from what I read
let,
from
let,
the experts. I don't
mhm,
think I'm an expert yet.
mhm, mhm.
So
Yeah, so my understanding is this MO, Zakaz MO, uh, you could buy them in the military shop, but it's not like the government would give you the watch to do your like military duty.
no.
So also this Komandirsky, I think you have some Komandirsky, right?
Yeah, this Komandinsky is the
Oh,
one
this
that
one's Komandirsky.
has a really interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if you want to hear the story. The reason why I got this because it was so cheap, and I wanted to source the case to use it for something else. Because
Mm-hmm.
the cool thing about Vostoks is they get you into modding. I think it's way cheaper than a Seiko. So if you really don't have enough resources and
Yeah.
want to take the risk, at least monetarily, you can mod with a
Uh-huh.
Vostok. But I just saw like, oh, the case looks good, and I just like click buy, and it took like forever to arrive. I didn't even read the case back on it as I
Mm-hmm.
posted about the story. Yeah, this is a Komandirsky, and this is one of my
Mm-hmm.
favorite cases. I wish they make more of these. They actually stop. They're very
Mm-hmm.
thin, and I could actually put a an amphibia in it, but I had to like
Mm-hmm.
dismantle the automatic parts from the movement just to fit the thin profile. But
Mm-hmm.
it works really well. I don't know what else you want to ask about the Komandinsky.
No. It's so you got this watch. What year is it from? Except
Uh,
like if we forget about inscription, because I want you to tell the story about inscription. But is there some way to date them,
Yeah, like my
or
my
not?
friend said that if it doesn't have the CCP anything, it's always going to be like in the 90s when the Soviet ended and the Russians
Oh, I
started,
see. I see. It doesn't have CCCP. Okay. Okay. So that's because
because
there's like
they actually
eliminations.
don't know what to call it
Mhm,
yet,
mhm,
or they just had to like just push this out, and most of the ones that they
mhm.
put out had like really crazy dials, like just to celebrate. Apparently there's this celebration that
Yeah.
finally the old regime is over, so they had all these special dials. You can still find them. I just don't find them. It's nice to have them, but I want to get
Mhm.
ones that I would wear. It's just not a wearable thing with the kachif stuff. So
Oh, but what do you don't like? The bezel?
no, the dials that they have, like all these celebratory style dials are very thematic,
Oh,
with the picture
you
of
don't
the
like the
old
type. I
guard.
see. I see.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's
Yeah.
nice to have them, but I always like, when I approach my collecting, is that I want to have one that I could still just wear,
Mhm. Mhm.
on a casual basis. I don't get too
Yeah.
crazy on colors because I do like to match everything with what I wear. um
Oh,
you
yeah.
know
But it's kind of like a Tiffany. It's kind of like a Tiffany color.
Right. When I'm doing other things, but the thing is, like, because of whether it's true or not, if the first prime minister of Ukraine was the one who inscribed this and gave it to somebody else
Mhm.
around the time, I do wanted to take care of it. I don't know. I just so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
totally. So, okay, so tell us about that inscription. So, I just saw it on your Instagram, but people who watch this live stream, they don't know. Hmm.
Right. So, like, as mentioned, I bought this watch because I wanted to source it for mod. I was after that kind of case shape.
Hmm.
So I saw it. It's not badly scratched. It's actually pretty in good condition. So I click buy. I did not look at the rest. Because I can tell if the case is badly scratched, there's something probably wrong inside. I just assumed that, and then when I got it, it actually just came without a strap, without even spring bars. And then when I flipped it around, it's got these writing. I don't know if it's
Oh, you got
clear.
I think we can see it. Yeah, we can see it.
Right. And you could probably read it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I read it on your Instagram. Yeah.
And so it's dated probably September 5th. I mean, does Ukraine or Russia switch the dates in the day when they write their dates?
So it's quite contrary. So the way you, so in US you switch the dates, but everybody else in the world you do like the first is day, after that month, and after that's the first you get month.
Right.
So that's why.
So this could be May 9th, 93.
93. Yeah.
And I'm part of the Vostok group page on Facebook, and there are some people who are really more hardened into this kind of thing. And I asked them, can anybody read this? And then while I'm waiting for that, I called my friend Kolina. She is she's a Bulgarian, but she does, I don't know how flexible everything is, but she also consulted her mom because she could read it, but she's kind of iffy about it. She consulted her mom. She sent the photo I sent. It took them a while to decipher, and then I got a message back from Facebook. A couple of people who knew how to translate it, and it's flat out the same. It's just saying like to Timothy Fay something, his name, from the Prime Minister of Russia,
President of Ukraine.
Leonid
Kravchuk. Yeah.
And so, and here's the funny thing is because when that day that I got this watch in my mail, and then I found the inscription and I had the translation, I looked this guy up. And he just died on that day.
Oh, actually the guy who that was gifted to, right?
No, the president, the prime minister, the one who gave the watch.
Oh, the president? No, president. Yeah, he died recently, I think.
Yeah, and
like
I got it on the
ago.
day he died on the day that I got this watch, and I don't want to put meaning into everything, but that was such a crazy coincidence.
I see. Yeah.
And that was around the time when the battle is happening. It's in between. It was, I think, around April I got it, or May. So the war is already head on.
The war already happened.
And
so
yeah.
So when you bought this watch, right? They didn't advertise it as a watch with like cool inscription. They didn't advertise it that it could be the gift from the important
no
Ukrainian president, right?
No, nothing. I got it for $15.
So you didn't pay any. So it's like, so what I'm trying to say is that it could be legit.
It could not be.
So it could not be, but it could be legit because if somebody would advertise it as the like important historical object, you would pay like crazy premium for it. Then it's you don't have any proof that was actually a gift from the first Ukrainian president. But because you didn't, like, why would somebody do it? It seems more kind of like somebody probably just sold it because they didn't know what they're saying. Right. So it's cool. It's really cool.
Really cool. Yeah, and I think the seller had like a bunch of Vostoks, old ones that are just like in a lot of sort. It's just a bunch of them, and that's the only thing that kind of attracted me was the case. This is cleaner. Yeah. And I don't know if you also saw that that TV show. Severance on Apple. I'm not promoting this.
I have it in my watch next list. I did not watch
the main character wears a Vostok with the green dial.
Oh wow!
With the exact green dial. But instead of this bezel, it's got one of the bezels with the numerals in it. And so I think at that time I'm kind of remembering it now. Not only am I just sourcing the case, but it's also like I could probably use the green dial because that was from the show, and I could probably at least
Nice,
make
nice.
something out of it. So that's, I guess, one of the
Yeah,
reasons. And I guess it's a double whammy, just even knowing that there's something extra special in it.
yeah.
So
And then also kind of coming back to these dials, right? So vintage collectors of Vostok, they like obviously сделано in SSSR, what you call CCCP, right? Or
mhm.
maybe in USSR or Zakaz Minister, so this like MO. Now these dials, they call them like, I think they call them fantasy dials. So like people don't know, like it just, there was this period when Vostok was, I don't know if that was even Vostok who created a bunch of these like colorful and crazy dials,
Yeah.
right? But in your case, because it's 1993, that actually historically, that's about the time when these dials appeared. So
Right.
that is that gives legitimacy, you know. So it's not like, it seems like it's not somebody just built watch from parts, right? But it
Right.
seems like that it could be that that watch was actually born with that dial, and if that was really gift from President Kravchuk to somebody, right? Maybe he actually ordered maybe he ordered some like number of these dials to make them as gifts, maybe for his, like, I don't know, employee. Oh, by the way, did you try to Google the guy who received the gift? That like
I try, but then it's a total civilian, so
uh-huh.
there wasn't anything. But I might want to pass that name to you, and maybe
Yeah,
you
maybe.
might be able to have resources that
Oh,
would dig up. I'm not really quite
yeah,
sure if he's
yeah.
from Russia or from Ukraine, or you know
Yeah, so maybe,
um
I don't know, maybe it was like somebody worked with Kravchuk, or maybe like his driver, or like, or maybe it was
yeah,
like important politician. I don't know.
right. What I'm
Yeah.
thinking too,
Mhm,
if it
mhm,
was a joke,
mhm.
I would have, I don't know. It's just really unfounded to me to just have
Yeah,
somebody
like
just do that.
why somebody would do it? Like you need to put an effort to do it, right? If you put an effort, you probably want to get some gains. So like, I would expect if somebody would fake it, they would put it at some like premium, but. Yeah, it could
Yeah.
be legit. It could be totally legit. So this is amazing, man. It
I,
could be
I'm
totally
I'm
legit,
banking on
though.
the side of legit. I
Uh-huh,
don't I
uh-huh.
don't plan because of the whatever value. I don't care about that.
Mhm,
I just said having something
mhm.
that might be tied to like the end of the Soviet, and
Yeah,
having a democratically elected person
yeah, yeah.
to.
That was the first president of Ukraine. That was the democratically. I mean, so we had independent Ukraine before Soviet Union. So we had this like Grushevsky was technically the first, but Grushevsky wasn't elected by like every citizen of Ukraine didn't go and vote like for Grushevsky or
Oh, I
something like
see.
that. But with Kravchuk, that was the first president that every citizen went and voted for. Like in those elections, I liked other candidate, but Kravchuk was okay.
Okay.
Kravchuk's okay. So Kravchuk with Yeltsin and Belarusian who was I forgot the guy from Belarus, the president of Belarus. Like those three guys, they basically put a nail on the coffin of Soviet Union.
Wow.
So they made because there was this time when it wasn't clear, like, does Soviet Union exist or did Soviet Union broke down? There was Gorbachev, who was technically president of Soviet Union. What is Soviet Union?
Right.
So these like three presidents, Kravchuk, which your watch is from, Yeltsin, and the guy from Belarus, they created some kind of like partnership or union, which like by this time Ukraine already left that union, but there was the fact that three independent countries like met together and created something and like after that, it's considered that Soviet Union did not exist after that. So Kravchuk had a lot of impact. He could have done more, but
Yeah.
but still, Kravchuk had a lot of impact to restore the independence of Ukraine and something what they are fighting right now with Russia. So how many 30 years later, Russia comes back and Russia wants to to occupy Ukraine back.
I know, which goes back to our point of conversation, whether it's
But what's
really
interesting in your specific watch, right? So like if you think about it, so, okay, so this is Soviet brand, right? So Soviet,
Yeah.
it's like horrible country, right? But it's a Soviet brand. The Ukrainian president who actually put an end to Soviet Union, right? So there's a lot of these like parallels, that there is
Right.
like a lot of history, and if you would take this watch, put it on a Ukrainian NATO strap.
Yeah.
That's kind of like such a story,
Right. Yeah. I think sometimes I put in like a a NATO strap is from, I think it was started with the British Royal.
even that, yeah.
So to put that on a Russian watch, even, it's just like it's also kind of what's going on. But like we always have this thing. They say like a watch is just a watch. It's the story that the watch brings to somebody, and it's been passed on is what actually makes it count, or what just makes it special. And I feel that these watches, as much as they came from a country that's not popular at the moment, it's just a watch. It's an inanimate object. It it's just telling the time. Now, whether it helps the person who wears it to tell the time to shoot somebody is a matter of another debate. But Eric Wind of Wind Vintage, I was listening to a podcast where he was one of the guests, and the subject of German watches, World War II.
A lot of parallels with
Right.
Soviet and German.
And then the same thing is, are we supposed to stop wearing Stovo watches because they also provided watches to the Luftwaffe or any of the other brands like Laco and stuff like that? But I don't think people are deterred from wearing those watches. And Eric had a good point, because his father, who fought or grandfather, I think, who fought in the war, came back with a Nazi sword, and he still has it. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? But he made a he made a good point, saying that the Nazis, they never gave up their watches without a fight. So it's most likely that they were good as dead, as they should be, for the watches. They don't offer it, wholeheartedly, willingly. So that's his mind. That's his, like his perception of it, which is kind of a little bit cool. It's like, so what if it's worn by a Nazi? Well, he's good as dead. We got it now. It's the spoils of war, So to me, I approach it that way. But World War II is a bit far behind, so I guess it's easier for people to kind of swallow that kind of perception.
Yeah, it kind of hurts less, right? So like, for example, if I would have, so like there are people who have Holocaust survivors in their family, right? So
Right.
I'm sure, like if I don't know, if my grandpa would be Holocaust survivor, that would hurt. That probably would still hurt, but I see your point that was kind of like father in the history. So it's kind of like, at least for most people, it hurts less. But now this, like the Russian invasion is happening right now. Like they just shot whatever, like 70 missiles on Ukraine yesterday, and 40 of them were going to Kiev. and that's those like not ballistic, but those cruise missiles. It's horrible.
It's
Like
crazy.
if those like 40 missiles would actually not, if they wouldn't be shut down by anti-air defense, actually 3 of them landed, and that's why like people have issues with electricity. People are like freezing now. There is like super. Anyway, the war is horrible. Let's not talk about the war. The war is absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
But that thing hurts more, and so my point. So I kind of like personally I have like two things. So I do have Soviet watches. I don't have Vostok. So
well,
you
come?
have Vostok. So yeah, I don't have Vostok, but I have, so like, because my family is from Ukraine. Like they lived during Soviet times, so like everybody has these like old Soviet watches. And and not a single watch is Vostok, if I remember correctly. So I have Pobeda, I have Chaika, I have
Polyot. The Polyot.
I have Polyot. Yeah, I have 2 Polyots. Yeah. But I somehow like, yeah, Vostok is super popular brand. Somehow like my relatives never were.
Right.
But like for example, some of these brands they have even more like sinister history than Vostok. So for example, I actually, one of the watches that I wear the most actually from my family is Pobeda watch that was worn by my grandpa.
Right.
It was pretty much, as far as my dad remembers him, that was like the only watch that he was wearing. It's pretty cool. It has this like black kind of like Dirty Dozen dial.
Those are nice.
Yeah, so this like from 50s. But the thing about Pobeda was that that was a brand that was envisioned, and it was like everything of that brand from the very beginning was tightly micromanaged by Joseph Stalin.
Oh wow!
That was like the Pobeda was his baby, like that was
right.
And yet another great guy, right? Like Hitler, Stalin, now Putin. And despite that, like I mean, my grandpa liked the watch. Like he hated all this Russian occupation. But it is what it is. And those watches, like they show dark history. So it's
Yeah.
But still, history is cool. Like it's. So like we like watches because they have history, and even if it's dark history, unless you kind of like want to promote it, but I don't think anybody like
no
you don't wear your Vostok watches because you're like, oh, I'm a big Putin supporter.
No, not at all. I'm actually a little bit, careful because I know a lot of people who, just I don't want to wear my Vostoks anymore. I'm going to sell them, or I'm not going to wear them. There has been actually. I went to a meetup, the Complecto meetup.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was my first meetup. I actually brought with me the Luna dude.
Oh, okay, and another cool Vostok.
As much as it is a Vostok, it's kind of well made because it's almost a bespoke project. And I was a bit hesitant to bring it. Like, I'm going to a watch meetup, and I'm pretty sure people would probably like, I don't know what they think about what the perception is about Vostoks, regardless of the war. And then now you put the war on top of it. But I know that the Complecto people are very open and welcoming community,
they're very welcoming,
which makes it great. So I wasn't phased by it, but I'm still a little bit tiptoeing. But as soon as they saw that dial, I'm like, oh my god, I've never seen a Vostok, which is funny because a lot of watch collectors, they know about the Vostok, but actually they've never actually seen one in person. And then when they see it, they kind of they have this glowing look on their face, like, oh my god, look at that dial! Like, this
cool.
scuba dude has a nice blue dial as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, so that one is actually vintage scuba dude, right?
yeah, it's a
Uh-huh.
true blue scuba dude.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It says сделано in SSSR. It has the CCCP.
mhm.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, so that one is true vintage. Nice,
um,
very cool. Uh-huh.
the this came from a friend of mine who I was talking about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
who did a lot of research. He's a crazy collector, and he was able to. He never buys anything that's like poor condition or okay
Mm-hmm.
condition. He
Mm-hmm.
only finds like the most pristine one, and he actually gave this to me. And because I
Very
wanted
cool.
it so bad, because the ones
Uh-huh.
that they have is now not, it's not a color blue anymore. It's teal.
I see.
So it's a bit greenish.
Uh-huh.
You can still find them, but they're
Mm-hmm.
on a different case and everything like that. So it was a nice gesture for him. It's like, hey, you love your Vostoks, here, have one.
Nice. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So yeah, that's those are my Vostoks really. But one thing about Vostoks is, you know, when I started collecting, or I'm just looking into collecting, I don't have enough money at that time, and Vostoks are quite cheap. And if I was gonna get a
Mm-hmm.
diver, people are saying like, oh, the SKX at that time was cheap.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it wasn't. For somebody who only wore quartzes, that you can't even justify paying $200 for a watch, because well, you can buy one for like $50 or less
Yeah. Yeah.
if it's a
Uh-huh.
Casio too.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted something like a diver, and for some reason, like people like you know some other YouTubers, would
Mm-hmm.
recommend, or bring out the Vostok, how great it is. The
Mm-hmm.
water resistance is
Oh yeah,
different.
they have like different system.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I was sold. I was sold.
Yeah.
I knew that they were quirky, and I knew that not all of them will actually like be up for the test. But
Mm-hmm.
actually, those are actually few compared to the ones that actually survive. Like
Mm-hmm.
rigorous tests. Like those guys from, I forgot the channel, but they always do these crazy tests, like pressure tests on watches.
Oh, I don't know which one, but yeah. So
The
they tested Vostok and
they
did they
test
test?
The
Mm-hmm.
only thing that happened with the Vostok was
Mm-hmm.
the case back just bent so much that it stopped the movement.
Oh, so they actually tested until the watch breaks. So it's not just
Yeah,
like normal test.
yeah.
Ah,
It didn't even
very
leak
cool. Uh-huh.
for that time. So
Very cool.
I'll send it to you. Maybe we'll put it on the notes, whatever, or something like
Oh
that.
yeah,
They're
yes,
they're,
please,
they're
yes,
cool
please. Uh-huh.
people.
Mm-hmm.
But they did one for the Vostok, and I was sold.
Yeah.
Like if you can get one for $50-$60, just wait a little longer. You forget about it, and
Yeah.
suddenly you get one in the mail. It's like getting a gift, like a surprise gift.
Uh-huh.
And
And
so yeah,
the good thing I want to mention about the Vostoks, so uh, right now a lot of them are actually available for sale from Ukraine. So there are also like, because the war started, it doesn't mean
right.
that all these sellers and watchmakers who are in Ukraine, they disappeared. They're still there, and right now they need collectors' help much more than they needed it before.
Yeah,
So if you actually wanna help Ukraine and the straps are sold out because
I
they are sold
know.
out everywhere, go buy yourself a Vostok, but buy it from Ukraine. And yeah, it's gonna take you forever to receive it. But from what I hear, that people are still receiving packages. There's
Oh
like.
yeah,
What's this? Nova Poshta, I guess that they're using in Ukraine. Nova Poshta still works,
right.
and yeah, you're gonna get your watch. You're gonna get your Ukrainian Vostok. It's gonna be Soviet, but it's gonna be from Ukraine.
Yeah,
So
people complain about how long it takes to
uh,
arrive, but it
it
will
is what it is.
arrive.
Yeah, it will arrive. Yeah, it will
There
eventually
wasn't
arrive.
any
Yeah,
complaint about like it not arriving at all. The only complaint
yeah.
was like the watch that arrived was actually the different one from the one that they ordered. But at least you
Mhm.
still have a watch that arrived. It's not like it's lost or something. So
Yeah. Yeah, and this also you made a very good point. So right now, a lot of people think that collecting watches is expensive, and I absolutely don't agree with that. And that's kind of like, if you don't want to go deep into it, if you don't want to research and you don't want to learn something new, then yes, collecting watches is very expensive, because you look what other guy has. He has Submariner, and you want Submariner again, so you will be like everybody else with a Submariner.
Yeah, right.
And after that, once you have Submariner, you are like, oh, but this is such a boring watch, and everybody has it. Let me get a Daytona. You know?
I know.
And you get from
Right,
like bad decision to another bad decision to even worse decision.
right.
But if you actually want to learn something cool, like, you don't like, it doesn't take money, it takes learning, it takes effort, it takes education, and yeah, like,
I
you
mean,
can.
like, if you get a Vostok and you don't like one part, you can always mod it. You can
You
change
can
it,
mod it if you want. Yeah,
you know. And if
yeah.
you want to take a hand at watchmaking, the most basic ones, actually, I started tinkering with movements first with a Vostok early on in my collecting,
Hmm.
because the one that I got fell off the bed and it stopped working.
Uh-huh. Ooh, did you break something?
Well, I watched a YouTube video. I got some
Uh-huh.
tools straight from Amazon and started
Uh-huh.
breaking it apart.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't find anything. I don't know what I'm looking at anyway. And I
Hmm.
start putting it back together and it was running again.
Nice, nice, perfect.
But
Nice.
that was my
Mm-hmm.
introduction to just
Mm-hmm.
like just doing hopefully minor repairs, even though
Mm-hmm.
at that time I didn't know what went on. But
Mm-hmm.
just seeing how it's made, as much as it's such a primitive movement. I mean, they never really changed the 2416B movement. It's been like that forever.
Mm-hmm.
They only
Yeah.
modified it
Yeah.
incrementally. It's still the same. It's almost like people who actually start with an ETA. I wouldn't compare it to an ETA, but it's as basic as you get, and
Yeah.
it's interchangeable. Everything's so interchangeable. You can mine from another watch, and that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
beauty of
Yeah.
having an affordable, and it could be also reliable, is that it opens other doors for you, like not just like having different types of watches, different types of Vostoks and variations, but it could also be something that might be, what, I want to actually learn how to open up a watch, fix it a little bit. I mean, I was still scared to open a Seiko, up until like, maybe a year after that.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like anything that's like not Vostoks are super holy. You don't touch them at all unless there's something wrong with
Yeah.
it. But that gave me a step up. You know.
Yeah. So the thing about Vostoks and Seiko, was comparing to ETA, they built, so the reason why they work for so long, right? So not just Vostok, like Soviet watches, they're known to work for like 40 years,
Yeah.
and watchmakers actually try not to touch them, because they say that the dust settled in the correct way, that like, if I'm gonna disturb the dust, now it's all ruined and I need to do the full service and stuff. So like, once it breaks, they service them, but it's actually advised to run them for maybe like 40, 50 years. And the same is happening with Seikos.
Yeah.
So this like Seiko movements, they run for very, very long. Maybe they are not as precise as
Right.
like ETA or like Swiss movements, but you can always regulate them, right? So it's not
Right.
a big deal. Like, if it runs plus 30, you move the slider a little bit, and now it's at zero. So it's but the good thing about Soviet and Japanese movements is that they have very low tolerances. So it's much easier to kind of tinker with them, to like play with them, because like with Swiss movements, the tolerances are very, very high. So you need to put, everything needs to work precise, and
Yeah,
it breaks
everything's
often.
really tight. Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
that's the reason why if you try to regulate a Seiko, as an example, yes, it'll be like almost cost for maybe a few months or so. But if you wear that all the time, it'll start drifting again, because it's the way the gears or the way the things is like put together. There's not a lot to hold it in place that long. I mean, even the Vostok, like if you jog that thing like so hard, um the the regulating lever actually gets moved by itself, just a big jolt.
Whoa, really? Whoa, I
Yeah.
didn't hear about that.
Some of
Aha.
them, like, well, you have to really hit it really hard, and
Okay.
so the tolerances are not as tight as a thing, but at the same time it can also work to its advantage. You're just gonna have to pick your battles. I mean, do you really want a chronometer
Yeah.
spec thing? Then you know what watches to get, but if you want something that actually can actually get there a little bit, and it's easily fixable, easily,
Yeah.
tossed out if you want to.
Yeah.
Um,
Has amazing history, maybe dark history, but it's still
yeah,
amazing history.
right. I mean, the early Vostoks actually are not colorful. It's either they have black dials or white dials.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen one, like they're mostly either just black dials and just numerals.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're as plain as day. I had a repair guy come over. He's from Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, like, hey, who's wearing a Seiko? He's a Russian wearing a Seiko. And I told him, like, do you have Vostoks? And it was like, oh, those are like kids' watches. I guess maybe he sees it as like, because I think, the
Oh, because
dials
they're
can,
colorful. Because they're
yeah,
colorful. Oh, I see. I see. Uh-huh.
the dials
Mm-hmm.
can actually be a bit playful, but the thing is, that's just the Russian way. They like the kitschy stuff. Like they like putting the tanks in there. They like to putting the planes in there. And I mean, you've seen their posters. If you ever go, if you ever been to Russia, like sometimes like they still have, or if you look at old Soviet Union posters, they kind of
Oh,
look like
they have they have the style. Yeah,
very like
they have kind.
nationalistic, and all
They
these
have.
stars blasting out. It's very like North Korea right now. If you ever go to
It's
North Korea, it's the same. They have the same aesthetic.
yeah, yeah. And unfortunately, the same. You look at other like communist regimes. They kind of that's like
Right.
why don't I don't want to say that design by itself is bad. It's very like unique design, but yeah, like for some reason, all these regimes they like they like the specific design.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool. You have and again, like so, like if you like step out of Vostok, there are a lot of other brands. Like for example, that Pobeda that my grandpa had, it looks very very similar to like Dirty Dozen design, and this kind of it wasn't the military watch, but they actually have some like these like super cool like these chronographs like Strela, for
Oh
example.
yeah, I like
Yeah,
those.
they have some watches that have space history, and actually like much more interesting space history than like Omega Speedmaster.
Right. You do have to be careful though if
Like
you're
they have
getting a chronograph like the Polya. I forgot what the numbering is.
it's like 3133 or
Yeah, I
3313.
mean, you still see them in sort of newish ones. A
Mhm.
friend told me that they have a very limited supply even back in the early 2000s. So it's either you get a clone of it that is still 3133, that is probably still using the same machines in
Mhm.
Germany, um, or it's just a clone of just
Yeah.
or it's
Absolutely.
original.
Yeah.
So you do have to be careful. Well, what the hell? Like they're not really that expensive anyway. So
Yeah, but then so with chronographs, unfortunately, and you need to service them, right? So sooner or
yeah,
later, even if you got lucky and you received serviced chronograph, like things like with this like Strela, yeah, like once it's time to service it, Like you would have to spend more than the watch is worth,
Right.
and that's tough.
I mean, I've yet to like actually see it shine a little bit more if they start making new ones again. You know, like the Seiko movement, the
Yeah, but it's
ST19.
yeah, but it's not the same, you know. Like
Right.
if so, it's kind of if you want this vintage. Like Soviet. Anyway, I know you. I collect vintage watches, so I know you probably have mixed vintage and modern, right?
I'm not sure if it's true, but apparently before the Venus machines that made the Venus chronograph movement was actually offered to Russia first, but apparently Russia
Yeah.
already has Polyot, so it went to the Chinese instead.
So I think they have before Polio 3313 or whatever that number is. They had Venus clone, and I don't know if they got legally that or they stole it because they stole a lot of.
Yeah, after
Like
the war, they
Soviet Union stole a lot of technology, not just watch. So like after the war, they stole these machines from East Germany. This from the town of Glashuta, you know, like that
right.
famous town of Glashuta, where like on the land gas from like they took all the equipment and they brought everything that to like Moscow. So this is like
Right.
all the crimes of. Sorry, but not just that. They were stealing these factories that were making cars. They were so that's kind of stealing equipment, but they actually stole a lot of like technology. They kind of like what we hear about China right now, that they are trying to make copies of American technologies. So that was happening with Soviet Union. So I don't know if that movement. Oh, that was Valju. No, I think it was Venus. It wasn't Valju. So they had that movement, but after that they went to Poliot, this like
Yeah.
3313, and that 3313 got like basically that was the only movement that they were using. But some very very cool previous vintage watches they actually used this other
Venus.
movement.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if they actually because some technology they actually purchased and they were using legally, but I don't remember about this one.
Right.
So if one person who watches this live stream, if you know, let us know in the comments.
Yeah. If I could, you know, I have another friend who's definitely a crazy collector. He's got all these research on Vostok watches.
No.
Unfortunately, he
If you want to find out, so two broke watch snobs, they did a lot of these like
Mhm.
historical
Right.
education. Just read, and so they have a lot of podcasts about like specific Soviet brands. But
Yeah,
the
I
one thing,
listen to them. They're
So
quite entertaining.
so specifically on chronographs, I think that there is the whole kind of episode that I just don't remember. I remember things about watches that I own, but I don't remember about others. And also there is Watch You Seek F10 subforum where all the Soviet collectors are. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, Christian, I think that was like, oh my God, it's like 48 minutes.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
That's really good. Very
Because some
interesting
streams go like
conversation.
almost 2 hours, and I feel like I don't think people would really want to stick around 2 hours. But yeah, I thanks very much for having me. I mean, I've never actually been invited by a YouTube channel to actually do one.
Now my famous YouTube channel that has like all three subscribers.
Well, it's
But
getting
yeah,
there. At least
thank
you're
you.
doing something with it, you know. Like my channel, you know, yeah, it hasn't been. I've actually tried to think about like, oh, maybe I should have one too, but I want to have more informative thing than actually just talking about new watches and stuff like that. But you know, I just have other things to do.
By the way, do you want me to put a link to your channel or your Instagram?
Just probably the Instagram, because
Okay,
you
because
know,
it's about watches. Yeah.
this
Okay,
is
guys.
about
So
watches.
Okay, guys, if you like vintage watches, please check out my channel and please subscribe. If you want to see even more watches, please check out Christian's Instagram account. I'm gonna link it. He has all these very cool and some of them are not that expensive watches. You can see that inscription. You can see this one. You can see the one with that was gift of Kravchuk and all this inscriptions, like super cool.
Always
Okay.
madness.
Thank you for joining, and yeah,
It's,
bye.
it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye. Okay, and now I'm gonna be ending the live stream. And how do I end this? That's gonna be fun. Oh, okay. I think that's fun.
Oh, we're stuck.